Hear ye, and welcome to the Royal Geek Podcast. I am your host tonight, Justin Sandoval, aka Sandy, and I'm joined, as always, with Anthony Amato. We like to call him Shamato. No T-roll tonight. That's okay. He usually brings these things down. Anyway, so I decided to stop fumbling over our Lord of the Rings talk and bring in an expert here. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce the one and only Chad Williams.
What's up, guys?
Hey, Chad. Welcome onto the pod. I
Yeah,
know
man.
I'm hyping you up here with the Lord of the Rings knowledge, but I think I'm actually on point here. So we'll see. Well, the fans will decide.
Yeah, for sure, man. You're
After
setting
this.
me up for failure here. Yeah, man. Glad to be on the pod. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Hey, love it. I love to hear it. I always appreciate the feedback you give whenever you send a text from, oh, yeah, I listened to the episode, loved it, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
man, for sure.
Appreciate it.
It's like a fan appreciation.
I know, right? Yeah, there we go. So yeah, anyway, let's take just a little bit of business. Thank you so much for listening to Royal Geek Podcast. Follow us on all of our socials at Royal Geek Pod, and like, subscribe wherever you're listening to this. And so we're here to talk about Rings of Power, Season 2, Episode 5. And I did not catch the title of that. Does anybody know off the top of their heads before?
Holes of Stone.
There we
Yeah.
go. Thank you. Thank you.
That's right.
So here's your spoiler warning. We're going to go ahead and dive right in because there's a lot of content here. This is a very meaty episode. And
Yes.
let's overall experience, though. Shamato, yay, nay, good, bad. What do you think?
Although I found some parts really frustrating, I thought everything was really good.
Yeah.
Like, the frustration was from people making bad decisions more than anything else. Nothing to do with the actual writing of the show.
Okay, so you're talking about characters in general?
Yes, the
Okay.
characters were very frustrating in this episode.
So the characters actually did their job, is what they're saying.
Yes.
It made you not like them.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. And Chad, how are you feeling about this one?
Best episode of the season,
Yeah.
I think. And I think this season greatly surpasses the first season. So, yeah, loved it. From a lore perspective, a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This has been, I think you're all right with the best episode of the series, I think. It was,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I feel like the big, season 1 and up until now, there's been a ton of exposition. And I feel like now we're just really starting to get the tread on these tires, and we're diving. We're actually diving now. It's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, the rings are becoming the main character.
Yes.
Yes.
And that is the thing pulling all these threads together, which is really cool to watch.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. It's almost like they're like magnetized, and they're just kind of like they're literally like pulling all the characters towards like almost like inevitable doom. Is kind of what it feels like.
Yeah,
in a lot
we know
of
how
ways.
it plays out. So yeah, you're right.
It's true.
All right. The show starts off with this really cool transition of the mountains, and it transitions to the rings
Yes.
made for the dwarves, the 7 rings, and I'm glad we got to right off the jump. We got the dwarves back because last week we were missing them, man.
The dwarves
Yeah.
are, without question, at this point, my favorite part of this show.
I'm going to piggyback off of that and say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
absolutely.
pretty amazing right now.
They really are. And I think, too, this is the best depiction of dwarves I have ever seen in Lord of the Rings media outside the books. And I say that because, in the Peter Jackson movies, Gimli's kind of comic relief.
Yeah.
A comic relief. We don't
Yeah.
get into. We actually don't see any other dwarves other than at the Fellowship, the actual Fellowship in Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here we're seeing their we even see them in the marketplace in this episode.
Yep.
We're starting to see some of the connections to their god Aule, the creator of the dwarves. References to that. There's some really cool stuff happening with
Yeah.
the dwarves.
I mean, I think that's a great thing to bring up there because you are right. Like in Lord of the Rings, essentially Gimli isn't really a character. He's just this pasted on warrior. He has some funny, like you said, he has some funny moments, and you do see he's basically just there to kind of humanize generally the elves in a lot of ways. 'Cause
Legolas,
he's,
yeah.
Yeah.
Legolas specifically, that's kind of what their relationship is there for, and just kind of represent the race of dwarves. So it's interesting seeing them have real lives and have real things happen to them. And it actually makes it stronger, like the points that you're seeing in Lord of the Rings, because you're seeing like the relationships. Now you have things to like actually pull from when you're seeing, the mountain and the way that Gimli, like what happens in there. You're actually seeing like the people who may have lived there at some point or their ancestors, things like that, and what it looked like in its glory.
Yeah.
It does bring like the scene in Moria from Fellowship of the Ring to life for sure.
Yes.
Because I was watching Fellowship a couple weeks ago, and those grand halls that they're walking through, that Gandalf's leading the Fellowship through, and then the orcs that are crawling on the walls and come down, and you're starting to see the scale of Khazad-dûm, and then here we see it in its glory.
Yeah.
And it's just a real, like, as a Tolkien fan, like, it's a real treat to see the civilization
Right.
Yes.
that is Khazad-dûm, and we get to see it early in this episode in a really cool way when Durin uses the ring to bring sunlight.
find the light. Yeah, which
Which is used. Is it just in The Hobbit, or is it also used in Lord of the Rings? I think the light thing is used, like the mirrors is used
Lord
in
of the Rings too. I think.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, don't they?
Yeah, there's a pretty intricate light system
Yes.
inside of Khazad-dûm.
Yes.
Yeah.
But here, what I loved about the depiction of the ring here is that, and I get why they're playing up the contaminating element already. You're seeing Durin being influenced by the ring in not so good ways. But I like how they also are playing up like its power to like do good.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like-
which actually feeds into its power to do evil.
Exactly.
Because it muddies the waters. Because it's like, it's one thing if everything is terrible.
Right.
Then you can be like, okay, it's obviously doing something. But you're making it both, because there's already the illogical part, which is what it's kind of doing, the contamination. Then there's the logical part of it where you're like, well, why would we give this up? It's doing so much good for us.
It's serving a purpose. Yeah.
Right. In a way, like it brings life and death in its own way.
Yes.
And so you even see that in the tree that Elrond gave to Durin the Fourth in season 1. You see Disa like caring for the tree, and it's flourishing like inside of Khazad-dûm. And the leaves are, that elvish tree, the leaves are like in full bloom. It's like such a cool scene. You're seeing like, while the ring really is bringing this kind of blessing, for lack of a better word, to Khazad-dûm. And that makes it, to your point, Shmato, it makes it harder to give up.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I know. That would be, I mean, it's clearly demonstrating the power. It's just the user isn't that in the question now.
Yep.
Which we do see, like you mentioned, the him finding the holes to find the light. But like when he first initially broke the hole, like everyone thought he was crazy. Like, what are you doing? This is like a load bearing wall. Like, don't knock this out. And and then when he actually finds the light, he goes to them, and he's literally like, "Don't ever question me ever again."
Yeah,
like,
pretty much.
Yeah. And then what the scene where he's like giving the speech to all the dwarves about bringing the light back, but Disa has this look on her face, like she's questioning things. What I know she's a stone singer.
Yeah.
But like, what's going on there? Is it because she couldn't keep up with the technology? Is that what it was? Or
I thought that was odd a little bit. But she's clearly like keying in on like something is off about this power. There's something not right. And then her that scene in the marketplace where she winds up kind of in where that body of water is in that cave inside of Khazad-dûm. And I think that was a reference to I think it was the reference to the Watcher is the actual name of the creature that they encounter in Fellowship of the Ring.
the water one?
Yeah,
like
just outside of the West Gate.
That's correct.
Which would also make sense because they literally introduced the West Gate in this episode.
Oh yeah, that's right. The doors.
The doors of
Yeah.
Durin.
Yep.
Because that's the one that says, "Say, friend,
Yeah.
you may enter."
Which
Yeah.
that was pretty cool to see in its full glory.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
that was to see the creation of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Which was this collaborative effort between the dwarves and the elves. That's the other thing too. I feel like the way they're depicting the relationship between the dwarves and the elves is actually much closer to the books than it is the Jackson movies, where in the Jackson movies, the dwarves and elves are always at each other's throats.
Yes.
You know, like Gimli and Legolas are kind of always at odds.
Yeah, they never really trust each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And here we see like there is trust. There's collaboration.
They're working
like
together. Yeah.
they're working together.
And I think it adds like a sadness to like what happens later. Because I mean, I will say in the books, the Lord of the Rings books, the contention is there between elves and dwarves. You know, I mean, there's even a moment in one of the Lord of the Rings books where they're caught by wood elves, and like basically essentially they were straight up, just because Gimli was a dwarf, they were gonna be like, we're gonna murder him. Like they were like, we cannot let all you other people, sure, come on in, but we cannot have a dwarf even blindfolding him and bringing him in and have him be here. That's how much mistrust there is in what has happened over time between those two races, and seeing them have a positive relationship. And this one makes it even like sadder that it got to that point.
Yeah. So in the lore, there's like positive relationships among certain groups of elves and dwarves, and then we actually see that. I love this so much. They actually show other Dwarf Lord representatives in this episode.
Yes.
That's right. Yes.
Which was phenomenal, because you have dwarves actually from all over Middle Earth that are represented there. And so, to your point, Shmato, the woodland elves, the Sindarin elves, the wood elves, are basically a different type of elf than you will see like Gil-galad, like the Noldor, the high elves.
Yeah,
are different.
So isn't that Legolas?
Yeah, Legolas would
is
be
a wood elf.
Yes. So where Elrond is, of course, of the Noldor, he's a high elf, obviously. Yeah. And so you see here the high elves and the elves from Khazad-dûm working together, and you don't see that depicted in other like Lord of the Rings stuff that I've seen.
Yeah.
But like from the lore, like they create things together.
Yeah.
The whole like collaborative work with like Mithril, and like how they like the elves incorporate that into the rings, for example, and things like that. So
or even into
cool
into the armor that like that Bilbo and Frodo wear.
Yep.
You know, that was Mithril
That's right.
armor
That's
as
right.
well.
That's right.
Yeah, and so you mentioned the council, like King Durin, he's doing all this good, like bringing the sun back, and it seems like at prosperous times. So he's like, round them up, like let's get all the dwarves here, discuss the rings. I do love the line where he's like, the rings aren't for you, it's for your masters, because their eyes are getting all big and greedy. But yeah, the representation, it makes the world feel bigger. Like that's the dwarf world. Like they had
exactly
6
right.
representatives present at the table plus King Durin.
Yeah.
It was very interesting just to see the personalities, the designs. Like they looked a little different too.
Yeah, they did.
Which I mean, like I said, it expands the world, and that was great.
Yeah,
for
part
sure.
of it.
Yeah, it's just really cool because it's like a lot of, because of time constraints and things like that. Like it's kind of very like simplified. It's like, oh, you're an elf, you're a dwarf, you're a man, essentially.
Right.
You don't really have a whole lot of like differentiation between them inside of there, because you got to basically be like, okay, good, good, bad. What you don't get that stratification.
Yeah. And so basically, he concludes the council meeting by saying like, this could be your masters for half of all your mining.
Yeah, that was cool. I again, like you see the duality of what the ring does, right? Because on one hand, there's this incredible blessing coming to Khazad-dûm because of the ring, and he's also like, I want to share this with my people. Like, I want you guys to have your ring,
Right.
for a price.
Yeah.
So it's subtle, like, you know what I mean? How they're incorporating like various elements of like good is happening, but power is corrupting at the same time. And I think they're playing that really well with the dwarves like storyline. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like that old idea of power corrupts, absolute power always corrupts.
Yeah, we're cooking now. Like that's how I feel with the show right now with like the rings. Like as soon as the rings like were really starting to be incorporated into the storylines.
Yeah.
Even with Galadriel, like that's been a big thing this season, and Gil-galad, and Like, but and then Elrond's like rejection of the ring. And
There's
stuff
extra
like
layer. There's an extra layer now.
Yeah, for sure. It's making all the storylines pop. Like, and you also see, like, honestly, like, I'll give a little credit to Amazon and like the showrunners for season 1. They set the chessboard. Now, people criticize like all the world building they did, but I'm sitting here going, as someone who knows a lot about the lore, I'm sitting here going, I don't know how they're going to do all the world building they need to do.
Yeah.
There's not
In the
enough
time they have. Like,
Yeah.
I don't see. So it's got to be boring a little bit in that first season to set the chessboard for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think and I think a good point is the rings have given, especially for the fans, it's given us direction. Because I think with so many storylines, in some ways you were kind of like, how is this going to all come together? And like you're like everything seemed at times to be pointing in different directions with how their storylines were going. And I think the rings kind of like pull everything to point in one direction and give it a purpose to every storyline to get to the same sort of finish line.
Yeah.
It's. I think eventually, once the men get the rings as well, and that becomes more of a feature, and we get the Numenor storyline moving forward, I think that you're going to see even more. Like as long as Theo doesn't get a ring, like I just like, you know what I mean?
Please don't get a ring.
One of the reasons this episode was so good is there's zero
No Theo.
Like I need less Southlanders right now.
So bad.
But it was interesting, like to your point, I feel like the storylines that are really rocking this season all have rings involved.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the beauty of this entire universe is the rings. Like it just is. And
Rings of power, man.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's there.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I and like I said, I think it's giving some propulsion to the stories. And it's also, I think, pulling in people who actually like Lord of the Rings. It'll give you a newfound respect, I'll tell you this, for the One Ring. The One Ring that'll eventually be made that controls all these other rings.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you see, like, what a contaminating thing Frodo has around his neck, you know, as he's going to
Yeah,
Mount
a
Doom
small
in
little
the
hobbit.
trilogy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like you start saying, oh, that's how Gollum became Gollum.
Yeah.
You know, from
You
a
see
Stour
it.
hobbit to that creature. Like that's, and so you start to like, it connects you to the whole universe, I think, in
Yeah.
a powerful way.
Oof, it's so good, man. Talking about these rings, it's getting wild. And Disa has her hesitation, and she even like during the fourth comes back, and he's been reaccepted into the family. Which like the ring is. He confronts his father about like being greedy, like doing a complete 180, like what are you doing? And then the father responds. I thought this was very interesting, with like love and compassion, and the ring is corrupting him, but yet he's able to. He's the one who extends the olive branch. But here's my question I pose: is he only doing that to protect the ring, like they thought the Galadriel was doing?
Yeah, I think there is like a part there where it's like, once again, it's like kind of the ring is like, you give him this and he forgets that. Like I think it understands
Misdirect.
like the idea of what can get this person off of the idea that he's on right now.
That's it. I mean, that's the beauty of the ring being introduced to a character like Durin. Is I don't know how to answer your question because the answer may be like, is he using it for good here with his son to reconcile with his son, or is he using it for his own advantages to keep the ring to himself because he knows his son is on to this? He's figuring out the power of this thing. You don't know, and you can't know because the ring is complex. Like what it does to people is complex, and the answer may be yes to both of those things.
We do get the scene like where he takes it off because it's like too heavy or too.
And he's like, "Where is it?"
Yeah, and he's freaking out
Yes.
like Bilbo did in the Lord of the
Yes,
Rings.
very much so.
Dude, I went there. Like as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh.
And I also love in that scene where you're seeing, so there's so many of these moments where people, like, you were talking earlier about how everyone thought maybe he was, going a little bit nuts. Well, like in that scene where we see him take the ring off, you see in that moment that he even essentially calls himself out for being a little bit nuts.
Yeah.
Because he was like, who made these plans? Who made these regulations?
Oh, yeah.
And the dude's like, you did. Like,
Narvi.
Yeah.
The master dwarf who's like his right hand, who's like a skilled craftsman, and he's telling Narvi, he's like, no, dig deeper, and what we do know is that eventually there's a Balrog
Yes.
waiting for those who dig too deep in Khazad Dûm.
And
that the greed of the dwarves is what eventually awakens the Balrog.
Yes.
now will they just dig just enough to where the Balrog still stays, and then it's the same one that gets in the Lord of the Rings trilogy? Like the only reason that he's able to come get them is because of all the digging from the 1,000 years that they're about to dig for, that kind of thing.
I think so.
Okay, that's
yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's
Which
that's wild.
the Balrog is referred to in the books as Durin's Bane.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like that Balrog was awoken because of Durin's greed.
Okay. Dang, that's
And
good. That's good.
So there's like a lot of pieces like being connected to even what we know from the trilogy.
Yeah, and it's crazy. It's 1,000 years, right? That's what we're led to believe here. Like this they're in the Second Age.
No, it's like
or-
4, I
Yeah,
believe.
it's-
Oh,
it's-
4,000
it's
years?
Yeah.
Several thousand years. Like that's one of the challenges of this
Jeez.
like entire series.
Yeah.
Is like everything has to be time condensed so much.
Yeah.
Because these events unfold over thousands of
Generations,
years, literally.
Yeah. And I
before
think
you
part of
get
it
to-
throws us off is how long elves live.
Yeah.
There are
dwarves kind of have
elves.
a long lifespan too.
They do,
right?
but like we've specifically seen elves that we know exist
Yeah.
in the Lord of the Rings.
Galadriel.
Like
Elrond,
yeah,
yep.
Galadriel, Elrond, and maybe or maybe not Gandalf, Mithrandir, whatever you want to call him. But yeah, so like you're seeing these characters in a time period that doesn't make sense. So it makes it kind of hard to think of how far it really is, because you want to think of things in the time span of like human aging, and you got to throw that out the window when you're referring to certain species.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gandalf, I really hope is not in the Second Age right now. That's a whole nother. That's a whole nother
Yeah.
conversation. But I'm
When we go
holding
to
out hope the
speculation,
stranger
yeah.
is someone else.
Yeah.
Particularly
which-
a blue wizard.
There you go.
That's my hope. That's my like. I'm gonna cling to that until they. But
Which
you
we'll
know.
close with speculation, so we'll have time to bring some
Cool,
of that stuff
yeah.
up. That'll be great. But yeah, Disa basically says, "Promise you'll never put the ring on." Like multiple times, he's like, "Okay, I promise." Like, I mean, clearly that's not gonna. I don't think that's gonna last. but we'll see. And then I believe that's the last of the dwarf storyline we get this episode.
That's gonna be a heartbreaking moment.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
when
because
she sees it for the.
they're such a power couple. They're so
Yeah.
good with each other.
Yeah.
I really like Durin and Durin the Fourth. Like I love
Their
the-
dynamic is great.
Yes,
yeah.
I love the character Durin the Fourth too. Like I think he's a great character.
Yes.
Like he's bold. Like he's got some like integrity to
Yeah.
him. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the
Yeah.
dwarves storyline.
And so we'll transition to the dwarves because we're going to go to Celebrimbor and Anatar, who are they're just wilding right now.
Yep.
Yep. We first see them when they're collaborating on the door, right? And Celebrimbor is giving this speech, okay,
Right.
which I thought it was a fantastic speech, but Anatar walks off, and they eventually meet back up, and he's like. Was it too long or whatever? Or no, it was too long. And he was like, I didn't include you. Like, you should have been in there. And Anatar's just in like the shadows right now, like really what he's doing. And just the collaboration between them. We talked about this briefly already, but it was cool to see because Celeborn kind of took lead on that. And he's so renowned, right? Like we got to put into perspective here. Like we only saw him for like a first few episodes. We haven't really seen the building of the character throughout the generation of generations, all he contributed. But this matters. This is serious here. The fact that he is leading this charge is a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think that's just something that needs to be highlighted because of what's about to take place.
Yeah.
And Anatar is stressing we got to build these 9 rings for man. Like, what about man? Like, and you can kind of see just the wheels turning in Celebrimbor's face, and like he's just like, no, like we're not gonna do that. Which did that catch you off guard when he said no? Like you got like right off the bat jump.
No, it didn't catch me off guard just simply because elves have that view of man being easily corruptible, so on and so forth. And they're kind of right generally
they're for
about
sure
that.
right, yeah.
You know what I mean? But what was interesting about that interaction was Anatar referencing Numenor.
Oh yeah.
He references Numenor, and he talks about how like amazing the place is, how impressive the place is, which of course, you know, at least in this series, he's been there as Halbrand.
Yes.
He was there in
Yeah.
season 1, and so here he's like, Numenor is so impressive, and he says something that's really interesting. He says, "I fear Numenorians."
Yeah.
And there's a line in the Peter Jackson trilogy where Gandalf is talking to Aragorn, and he reminds Aragorn that Sauron fears the blood of Numenor. And so it's like a really like direct line. Like that was a callback right there, or call forward, or whatever you want to do. But like that was a like, oh yeah. Like that he does fear, and even in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Sauron fears Aragorn.
Yeah.
Will get the ring. Like he's fearful of the rightful heir of Isildur coming back to Gondor. Like, and so even then in the Second Age, he's like, these Numenorians are no joke. Like I fear these guys.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Like Sauron in fair form, he's in elf form. This is I've told Justin that this is like probably my favorite character in lore. Is Sauron in fair form, which is as Sauron, like, and because he's a master, a master manipulator. He's this super powerful elf. Like I love the elves.
Yeah.
So then you take a Maya, like that's the angelic being that he is, this eternal being, this powerful being. Then you put him in an elf form. It's like, come on,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's just. It's so awesome. I can't wait to see fight scenes with him too, like that are coming.
Oh
like,
man,
that's gonna be sick.
Just the thought of that is incredible.
And you
It
guys
really
referenced it on the last episode when you reviewed episode 4 with Galadriel's fight scene that ended that episode. Like elves are like incredible fight. I just love that about them too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see Anatar in a fighting sequence. That's for sure.
Man, if we get an Anatar versus Galadriel, that would be pretty wild.
It's got to be coming.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I'm pretty pumped about that.
I mean, yes, Anatar. Like we're looking forward to him fighting, but like the manipulation of this guy is unreal
It
right
really
now.
is.
Like, he eventually convinces Celebrimbor to make these rings, and I love how he's like. When they come across the I forget the girl's name. It's like Meridale or whatever, who goes invisible, but she's not really. She's like in another plane, whatever, right? But so Celebrimbor takes the ring. I was like, "What are you guys doing?" He's like, "Oh, we're trying a new alloy." And we thought, and he like, Celebrimbor is getting ready to like, "No, you're supposed to use," and he pauses, and he's like, "Wait a minute," and then Anatar's just making mistakes, I feel like, in order to reel him in, because if Celebrimbor's name's gonna be attached to that, it's gonna be done right.
Yep. And he's already said, "I'm not making these rings for men," and Anatar concludes that with, "I'll do it myself."
Yes.
And so he's like a mad scientist a little bit too in this episode.
Yeah, for sure.
And which is kind of cool as well. And it was really interesting because and I can't remember her name off the top of my head either. She's just like a character that was added in the show.
Mirdania, I think is her name.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, when she puts on the ring and disappears or goes into the shadow realm, she is terrified by what she sees. And what's really, the manipulation goes up a level when they have that interaction. And he's talking to her, and she's terrified by, I saw this like evil, like eternal, like darkness in the room with me. It's him.
It's him.
It's
It's literally him.
Yeah,
And
he's
so-
literally
And but he, like, here's the little thing, and this is like subtle stuff, but it's also really good because it's true to lore. Celebrimbor would also have a presence in that realm. And the reason why,
He was born in Valinor, right?
because he was born in Valinor, and because
so
he's
good.
born in Valinor, he has access to that realm and is like present in that realm in one way. And so it's like a subtle thing, but Anatar knows Celebrimbor's been to Valinor, the Undying Lands, however you want to, whatever you want to refer to it as, basically a heaven, type place in Middle Earth or adjacent to Middle Earth. And he's like, Yeah, Celebrimbor. You saw Celebrimbor.
That's what it was. Yeah.
That's who it was. And it's like genius.
Yeah,
like
and-
the whole. I loved that scene so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, not only is like he like talking her down like out of like craziness, but he's also like kind of instilling doubt into Celebrimbor.
Yeah.
And so then Celebrimbor conveniently follows it up with a speech that like gets everybody very like
Yes.
wait, you want us to do what now and
Yep.
commit what now? Like it really started to get the gears turning on everybody, and only for Anatar to come. And,
He comes in behind him.
yeah,
And just like talk. He's a good, calm guy. He's like the guy who comes in after.
He
like,
plays good cop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he set himself up for that. That's
Yeah.
the craziest
I
thing.
know.
Yes.
I know. It's,
Yes. Well, making
Shout out
him
to Charlie
the person.
Vickers too.
Yeah.
He's playing this perfectly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's
And
been really well
yeah,
done.
and back to like what he's doing with Celebrimbor, he's essentially like I feel like he's almost like incepting him because he wants everything to he wants Celebrimbor to think that what he is doing is because he wants it done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's literally like a verbal representation of like what the ring corrupts. He's literally corrupting him with his words
right.
and twisting his mind to think that he's doing this because he wants to do it,
Yeah.
which is the same thing that the ring is doing to like Durin and does to pretty much anybody who wears
Yeah.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it twists you into thinking that what you're doing is because you want to do it, not because the ring is influencing you.
And it kind of ends with like that storyline kind of ends with Celebrimbor starting to break down.
Yes, and it's because of Anatar. And what
He's in his head. I mean, he's like,
so like some of this is like this right here is like peak manipulation. Here is when Celebrimbor approaches him and he's like, "Did you corrupt the rings?" And he's like, "No," like blatant lie, obviously for
Yeah.
the viewer.
Right.
But then he does something that is just nutty and twisted. And he's like, We did
Yes.
this because we brought deceit into this. You brought deceit into this.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
lied
by
about
lying to Gil-galad.
Oh my gosh! And
Like once again, he's like he's giving him like just enough to make him think that this is what is supposed to happen in this
Yes.
situation, you know, and like he's putting this into his mind because if he had just said no, then I think Celebrimbor would have kept on digging and trying to figure out
it would eventually got there.
or just not believed him at all, and it would have shattered something in that relationship. So in another way, it's almost, I don't know why I'm just thinking of this now, but it's almost sort of like in The Lion King when Scar essentially convinces Simba that it's his fault that Mufasa is
Dead,
and he ends up running off. Well, I think it's very
It's
similar what
very
he did
similar.
to Celebrimbor there is he basically maybe was like, yeah, this isn't like my fault. This
Yeah.
is
Your
fault.
your fault.
You did this.
Yeah, for sure.
and I allowed it, like that kind
Yes.
of thing. Like
You can see
We're in this
that.
together now.
Right, yeah. You can see that the wheels are coming off the track
yes.
for Celebrimbor.
And I think Celebrimbor actually like puts his hands on his face.
He
Like
does.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, like in pure
yeah,
disbelief.
he's like I can't believe that I've allowed this to happen. Like,
Right.
kind of like this. What have you done to me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
And in a way, he's almost like he's doubling down on all his bad
Correct.
decisions.
Yeah. Yep. He's
know?
like, well, we're gonna make this right by showing everybody that these can be made the right way, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And then like we see the other side of the deceit. We see the high elf. We see the king.
Gil-galad.
Yeah, Gil-galad.
Yes.
Okay. And he has a little interaction with his ring as well. And there's like flashes. We've seen Galadriel have these flashes, and you see a whole bunch of stuff: dried up river, dead fish,
Mm-hmm.
and then Sauron in his crown with the flames.
Yep. An orc drinking blood.
That's right, the orc drinking blood.
Yep.
And one of his advisors in the back is just like, the orcs are like in Mordor, like we got to go, we got to send troops, we got to do like mobilize, and he's just got this look on his face, like there's
Yeah.
more here than's really going on.
Yeah.
Incredible scene, it really
yeah,
was.
it
was like a quick
really
hitter,
well
a
done.
really quick hitter,
Yeah.
and it did it.
It was really well done. Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a character I've grown to like a lot too this season. Gil-galad is kind of this no nonsense,
Yeah,
very like kind of reserved and like commanding high elf. Like he's playing that really well. I think the way a high elf king would
Yeah.
or should be played. And it's interesting too that he is. You can see he's torn about how much to let this thing influence him or not. Like he sees its advantages. He's seeing life return to like, the elven trees and so on.
Yeah.
But he's wrestling with, and that's what you see in that scene. He's not comfortable with this thing.
He's literally like playing with it the whole time
but he knows he needs it.
Yeah.
And they keep cutting to this like scene of like them covering their hand, like
Yes.
covering the ring, like it's almost like there's like a shame involved or something. Like they're just the elf. It does something different to the elves.
Yes.
Like the elves interact with it different than Durin. Durin's much more, hey, point here and
Yeah.
dig here, and they're more subtle. It's more used for like insight and like healing
Right.
of the land.
Well,
like
that
kind of stuff.
that kind of makes sense if you think about it, because like the elves already are established as powerful race, right? So power is not something that they need, right? So what do they need? Well, their goal was to strive for life in the tree, like restoring, and
Right.
and so yeah, so it makes sense that the ring would interact that way, like when they stick the hand in the water and like
Yeah.
he stirs it up and it like
Círdan.
Yeah.
I miss Círdan, the shipwright. That's one of my favorite characters in lore. He's
Oh,
been in the
yes.
sea. He's been a feature. He wasn't in this episode.
no, it was last one I think, right?
Yeah, one of the last two.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another character I've really enjoyed
Yep.
from the season as well with the elf storyline.
I think it was really important what you just said about the need. I think you're seeing that need express itself. I think that's essentially what the ring does to the bearers. It gives you what you need, what you want, in whatever form it may be. In, Durin's case, it's very much about taking care of his people, gaining wealth, gaining all these things. Whereas, like you said, for the elves, that's not their ultimate objective generally as a race.
No, yeah.
Because, for them in a lot of ways, money is sort of fleeting because they essentially live forever, in a very there are of course ways for them to die, but so like money doesn't have that, like material things don't have that grip on them as much as other races.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of foreshadowed. We've seen with the way that humans act in this, or man acts in this series so far. You can already tell that when they do things, it's probably not going to be for the good. Of the
Yeah,
world.
it's gonna be bananas when man gets
Yeah.
a ring in the series.
Yeah, the elves they see themselves as like basically guardians of Middle Earth.
Yeah,
Like their job is to like make sure that these like wicked evil men don't ruin everything, or like these other like they just have this like kind of like we're here to like make sure this still works. You know what I mean?
Dude,
Like,
they're the
make it-
checks and balances, man. That's
For
what they
sure.
are. They're just like ensure things don't get too out of control. That's what it is.
And they really don't trust men who are like the middle managers of Middle Earth. You know what I mean? Like they really don't trust
oh
them.
no, they got their like the fat ties and button-up shirts.
Yeah,
man.
for sure.
Gosh.
They're like,
oh,
man.
I love it.
That's pretty much it.
Oh man, but yes. So it was very, very intriguing storyline here with like Celebrimbor and Anatar, and I'm so excited to see more from them. I really am.
I need way more Anatar. And
Yeah.
Celebrimbor.
Oh yeah.
Like, inject that into my veins like every Thursday for the
Yes.
next 3 weeks. Like I need more of it.
I know. Like especially like last week we didn't get any. I was just like, come on. Are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
They have a sweet spot. They do, but I
sure.
understand. I understand the building of the story. Like we gotta get the full blown stuff,
And some of it
preferably with less Theo.
Some
but
of
yeah.
it started paying off this week. Like Elrond's coming back. Like
right.
like what happened last week needed to happen to move things ahead. Last week felt like a chess moving kind of week.
Yeah.
Where this felt there was a lot of payoffs this week. Like
Yes.
that I've been looking forward to. Like I think that's why I enjoyed the episode so much
Yeah.
too.
Well, yeah, you mentioned Elrond coming back. The scene of him just booking it, just losing his cloak and just like running through the
How
forest.
great a character is Elrond in this?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Like he's been like just incredible.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned it either last pod or the pod before that, but like this season's like really when I start picturing Elrond like as we see him in Lord of the Rings, like he's starting
For
to
sure.
come into his that
Oh yeah,
that type
for
of
sure.
Elrond.
Dude, when in the first episode of this season when he does like a Harrison Ford in The Fugitive off the waterfall.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I was like, okay, here we go.
Yep,
Like,
this is it.
Yeah,
right here.
yeah. I mean, and just the way he stood up to Galadriel in that moment. Someone who is in general thought of more highly than him at this moment, I would believe. And then also on top of that, like earlier when he was essentially her like captain,
Yeah.
like it became more powerful than her, and he was able to like essentially, push back on her, which in a moment where there aren't a whole lot of people that push back on the will of Galadriel.
You're right.
It's just something that isn't done a whole lot. So it is really cool to see him do that. One thing I have been thinking about is I've been like toying with the idea of like, what if I almost sometimes kind of wish if they had run like 2 shows at the same time, like maybe like one in the spring and one in the fall, and kind of split the storylines a little bit and have them kind of like track each other, instead of like this. Because like we go 2+ week, we usually go at least a full week between seeing certain characters.
Yeah, that's true.
like for example, we didn't see a single moment of the stranger at all. We didn't see any of
No Theo.
even though we're happy that we didn't see Theo, but we did
but I
see
like
Theo.
Arondir. Like
Yes.
that, he's a cool character.
Isildur is over there too.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
Isildur,
true.
yes.
Isildur's
You
there.
know, you got those characters down there, and it's they're on. It's almost like they're constant. Your characters are always constantly on deck. It's like there's constantly these moments of you're seeing them reach these peaks, but then you're like you see the end of the episode and you're like, whoa, okay, that was really cool. Then you're also like, I'm probably not going to see anything.
Yeah,
It continues
you
this
get a
for
week
another
off,
week,
yeah.
and 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was happy to see. Like last week was okay for me because I got to see Ents,
Oh yeah.
and it was
Yes.
cool to see the Ents. I got to see some version of Tom Bombadil.
Yes.
And I got to see Barrow-wights. Those are the coolest, like the Barrow-wights that they're actually in the Fellowship book. That they like, and it's interesting because Tom Bombadil saves the Fellowship from the
Yeah.
Barrow-wights in the book, and then but you see the Barrow-wights, these like floating skeleton type spirit, dead and undead at the same time beings. And they killed that. You guys mentioned that on the episode.
Yeah.
Right,
You
yeah.
did. Like, those look great. They looked phenomenal. I mean, this show looks great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, everything it does looks amazing. Like, you mentioned even the opening shot of this episode, just beautiful.
Very good.
Like, just really high quality stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of high quality, like we transitioned to Numenor, and just the city is beautiful. The
is.
city is gorgeous, and
It is.
we see the tower, right? I forget the tower's name. I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but the tower is standing, and you kind of zoom into the island, and there's chaos right now. Like there's Farazan.
How far
Yeah.
is on?
Yeah, that gets the title now, right? The king.
Yep.
Dude, this guy. Somebody texted me who watches the show, and he said that they could see Farazan being like my evil alter ego.
Oh yeah.
I
just
like
the
this
beard and the
character,
hair.
though.
And
I like
Yeah.
him a lot.
I
do.
I really like Farazan.
Yeah.
I don't particularly like some of the people around him.
Yeah.
Right
no,
now.
for
Yeah.
sure.
No, I like Farazan. He's a very
sure.
intriguing character, which I do think that it's gonna go down with him for sure.
Oh yeah, he'll be a huge character going forward.
One of the when the intro scene comes on, they're still chanting his name. Like they are all about this. The eagle like crescenting him, the king, and things are changing. We see like titles being stripped, right? But before that, like Farazan is telling his son, like you need to like prove to me like you're worth it. Your mom foresaw your demise, and tell me what she said or saw. I will if you do this right, that kind of thing. But then he gets power crazy, and he goes stripping all the titles of the people loyal to the queen. Which we do see in a very interesting scene here, where the captain is interacting, and his daughter comes and checks him, and is like, the daughter made such a crazy
sucks so hard.
180 from what I thought she was gonna do. Like,
I brought this up I think a couple episodes ago, with like her character is just like she's awful.
right.
She's so bad. She's Numenorian Theo. Oh, like
That's true.
Like it doesn't
true.
make sense. Like she was all about her brother. I guess because her brother died fighting for the queen.
yeah. But
Yeah.
okay, so the biggest problem I have is she's like digging into her father. Like this grief is hers and hers alone. The dude lost his son too,
Yeah.
and he was there.
Yeah.
And he and there's something different about like being there.
Right.
You feel like, what if I had done something different
Yeah.
in that moment? Like, could he have lived? Like that type of thing is probably going through the father's mind right now. And and I just feel like the daughter is just such a like, I don't know, she's being so self-centered in her pity and her grief that it's just like it's so off-putting. And she's just like acting so high and mighty, like she has all these answers.
Right.
And she was just some artsy chick. That's all she was.
Yeah, and I think it was a couple episodes ago where Valendil, like he checks that and he's like, I was there, I saw what the queen did, like I saw what she contributed to the
Yeah.
war, like,
Right.
and he's there again, and he has to like get Pops' back, like he's like, Captain, like, and
Yeah.
and he has to talk him down, and then he gets his respect paid due because he's a very high up member of the society, and then the little stupid son is like trying to power check him, which dude, I don't even care about the son's name. Like he's such a d-bag.
Kimon,
Kimon, something like that.
I know. I just will say this. I feel like I need to defend the legacy of J.R.R. Tolkien. He did not create Theo nor Elendil's daughter. I
Okay,
just want to throw that out there.
Okay.
praise.
That
Makes me feel
that
better.
neither one of those characters are in lore. So they were created by Amazon, not Tolkien.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So just throwing that out there because she's a horrible character.
Yes,
You're
she
is.
absolutely right. This is a dramatic shift in terms of like her whole like energy
Yes.
in the show.
Well,
to be honest
yeah,
with you, it's like,
like-
oh, when did you become a villain? Like heel turn out
Correct.
of nowhere.
'Cause also, like on top of it, she didn't seem particularly intelligent or well connected with politics or in the military in season 1.
She was in the fine arts. Like what?
Yeah, she was just like I said, she was like
Who are
she
you?
Was, she was some artsy chick who like, and she didn't seem to be particularly like well like intelligent either. She didn't seem to like she was somebody who was like a deep thinker, like not even like a philosopher type of smart.
Yeah.
She was like, I like to paint.
Yeah, and
She's
now
just
she's a
a terrible
political
character.
powerhouse now.
Yeah,
Apparently,
I don't
right?
know.
That makes no sense.
There was something in that interaction though with Alfarzan and his son, and there was a little clue in that little transaction, that little back and forth they had there, where you can see Alfarzan is going to lead Numenor astray, and he says something about he hates elves, and the Numenorians who were once like close friends with
Yeah.
elves, and now they're not, and
Essentially, they sided with the elves, whereas the rest of
Right.
man sided with oh my gosh, I can't remember his name right now.
Morgoth.
Morgoth.
Yes,
there we go.
There you go.
And so in the first stage, so you have, but now you have this deterioration of this relationship over time. So you have the faithful who still follow the religion basically of the elves as well.
Yeah.
Elendil is one of them.
Yeah.
And then you have Alfarzan who's like, no.
Morgoth.
Like we are, and eventually, like in the books, the Numenorians they turn almost completely to Morgoth worship. They get into like human sacrifice, even that kind of thing.
Jeez.
So it gets really dark. But Alfarzan says something about the elves, they get to live forever kind of stuff, and we're doomed to die, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, when they received Numenor as a gift from the Valar, they were basically told, you can sail, east, you can just never sail west into Valinor. And it's called the Ban of the Valar. And so it became this like, wait a second. And you see Alfarzan like, wait, why are we kept out?
Yeah.
The elves, they get to go to Valinor whenever they want. We're kept out. You're seeing like basically how like he's going to get the populace behind him.
Yeah.
Which is he's going to rile them up to like hey, seize what's yours, and you can start to see like they're getting ready for that. Like they're starting to like sow those seeds, even like little comments like he was making there to his son. Really interesting.
Which clearly it's paying off because his son, like they storm a
temple
where they're worshiping and they're having a moment of
not even really. It's not. Essentially, that was a funeral.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
memorial
like
service,
a memorial
for all the
service.
fallen soldiers that died. And I mean, essentially, like Isildur's like memory is being sent out to sea, and now the king guards are coming on, storming in with little D-bag, and Kemen, yeah, and the scene where like they're rounding everybody up, and then like he picks up the statue, right, of the elven.
Of course, he knew exactly what he was gonna do.
Yeah,
I know. Oh my gosh!
But finally, somebody punches this dude in the face.
Yes,
well deserved. But Valandil really comes in and steps up. But I was really disappointed that he
threw the knife.
Well, no, not even before that. I was really disappointed that he let this guy hold him into the water and just like, I was like, what is going on here?
This guy weighs $150.
You're up against a trade fighter who's way bigger than you.
Yeah, he literally he went and was trained as like a really good soldier, and he's getting drowned by this political punk.
Yeah.
And but then he finally overcomes him, getting ready to slaughter him, and he gets stopped. And then, of course, he just leaves it there.
And turns away from the person.
I know.
It's like, oh my gosh, what are you doing?
I actually felt for this death, man. Like, this was a pretty powerful death.
I was liking that character more and more.
Yeah.
Too.
And, which I don't think I know that character's name is in existence in lore, but I don't think that character was, right?
No.
Yeah. I think isn't one of like Isildur's descendants named Valandil, I think.
Yes.
But yes. So anyway, he's dying. He's dead, and they end up shipping off everybody, rounding him up, and like capturing him.
I do think it was also like it was an important thing to show the sun essentially tainting the water.
With the sword,
with his blood.
Yes, with the blood of Valandir. I think that was important.
Symbolic,
to like, in symbol, and it's also, of course, a symbol of like essentially like cleaning his hands of what he did, like that kind of idea.
Yeah.
So I think it was kind of like fitting into both of those worlds in that moment of those ideas. I am kind of I'm a little annoyed because I think this is going to be like the switch moment for the daughter, and like I don't think she really deserves to come.
You're saying she's gonna have a redemption arc, is what you're saying?
Oh, I 100% believe she's gonna have a redemption arc.
Just
like I mean, like I don't think she deserves one.
Yeah.
Like I 100% don't think she deserves one. Yeah. But I think that she's going to get one.
I hope that's not true. I really hope.
Yeah,
that's
me
not
too.
True. That's not good. That's
I
not
mean,
good at all.
I hope she doesn't.
Right.
I 100% hope.
No,
'cause
we need less of her.
Like I said,
For sure.
I think her character sucks.
What if she volunteers to be the first human sacrifice? I'll be okay with it.
Yeah.
I was holding out for Theo.
Oh yeah.
Can we get Theo out here?
Yeah,
to Numenor?
Yeah, he makes it to Numenor, and they're like, "Oh, you're the sacrifice.
Yes.
You're the one."
That haircut
To
of
tell
yours."
you the truth, I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be an infuriating part 2. Like I said, I think like I said, she's Numenorian Theo. I think it's going to be an infuriating arc where all of a sudden people are forgiving her and giving her flowers for being nothing and being just a terrible character, not earning anything, just being given things.
Yeah.
And then she's going to be like, "You've been through so much.
Yeah.
I
Let
hope
me just
that doesn't
let me just
happen.
give you whatever you want."
Great. Please don't talk to the existence.
It was interesting how the Alfarzon, that final scene where he like pulls back the thing covering the Palantir.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, like Mr. I Hate the Elves.
Exactly.
He's gonna stare into the elf stone.
Didn't you just like
To,
overthrow the queen by
yeah,
because she did this? Like,
that was
of that,
really
yeah.
that was really interesting. Actually, this was my favorite episode also for the Numenorian storyline, period.
Yeah.
Like, I liked the Alfarzon developments. I really like Elendil. I like him as a character.
Yeah.
And, I thought that, apart from his daughter, being the worst.
Yeah.
You know, I honestly liked the Numenorian storyline a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think the storyline is cool, but there's some really frustrating, infuriating characters.
Yeah.
But
For
not
sure.
in a bad, not in like a bad
They're
writing
meant
way.
for you to hate them.
Yes,
That's
like
kind of
characters
thing.
you're
Yeah.
supposed to hate.
Yeah.
And truly going to the Palantir, I think that was just like solidifying the fact that Farazan is a politician.
Yeah.
I don't think he cared about the Palantir at all. I think he cared about what the Palantir meant to people
Yeah.
and what it meant if the queen was being making her decisions based on it. To tell you the truth, I think it's down to a point of he may not even hate the elves, but he knows that is a topic that if he drives home,
a hot
he
button,
can
yeah.
get people to do what he wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tool.
Yeah. And but yeah, that was a cool closing scene on him, and that kind of like wrapped up
Yeah.
Numenor for this episode. And we actually go back to the Southlands, and this massive like crate is being transported. And I mean, we're off the jump. I'm like, okay, we're going with Galadriel here, and she's captured. Which, surprisingly enough, like they treated her pretty well for the most part. Like they opened the cage, just like let her walk out, and then like she like bucks up and. Adar comes real close, and she like immediately like pulls a dagger from her hair, like a little.
Well, if
small
you
one.
don't, with the orc, there was like I guess he's just number 2. I'm thinking because that's like the tall orc. The one who had that weird scene where there was the baby orc.
Right, yeah.
This kid.
He had a knife on her before Adar. Like essentially is like, no, let me
yeah,
like
let's talk
interact
about
with
it.
her.
Yeah.
And then she puts the blade or whatever to his throat.
Yes.
And then he's like, hey, I think we have a common enemy here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which for me, this kind of like this took me off guard because I was like, whoa, Galadriel's gonna form an alliance with Adar. Like that just is not. I don't know. That's not a Galadriel move at all.
Yeah.
No, agreed. Yeah.
I think it's really hard, but for her, I mean, actually, like Adar is like in the ranking of like evil in Middle Earth right now.
He's not that high.
He's
up.
not that high. There are
No.
at least 2 or 3 high level threats that are higher than him.
Yeah.
Like minimum. I mean, you got like Sauron, you got whatever
Definitely.
that the Black Wizard,
Dark
you got
Wizard and Rune.
whatever Farazan is doing
Yeah. He's fourth.
in Numenor.
Yeah.
I mean, truthfully, you could even say like, I mean, there might even be worse ones because like for the most part with him, yeah, he's reshaping the lands there, but there are definitely some evils that are larger than him in this universe right now.
For sure.
Yeah, and so that's where we leave the episode. Credits roll. We have a week to speculate on what the heck's going to happen. I'm very interested to see which storylines they decide to continue the next week because, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts right now.
Yep.
There's several that I am like glued in on, and I'm here for it, dialed in, turned all the way up.
Yep.
And then there's some that I'm not, but I know that those lower ones need their time. I'm just wondering are we going to get the reverse again, like we had last week, that same exact one in next week's fashion, or are they going to pull and mix it up again? Like, I feel like storylines have to start converging here because we're in episode 5. This is an 8-episode series. Episode 6 it's got to be a turning point somewhere. We got to get some storylines coming together. I think the two that have the best shot to join right now, I think. Honestly, is like Isildur reuniting with the Numenors, I think is a possibility.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the Nori and the Stranger, I think, are not going to connect to anything. I think they're way too far out.
I don't see how they do. I was early in the season. I was enjoying that storyline.
Yeah.
Actually, I thought the Easterlings and Rune were cool.
Yeah.
Like the design, like they kind of had this like Star Wars Tatooine kind of vibe going on.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool. I'm interested in the Dark Wizard. I do want to know more about.
But I feel like that
about
storyline
him.
is like they're dropping nuggets here for season 3. Like I feel like that one's not the big one that we're gonna get because I don't know. They might do some big things with that, but I feel like the gears are really turning on these other ones.
Yeah, my prediction is we'll get the Stranger storyline at the very beginning of episode 6. We'll get, maybe 5-10 minutes of it, and then we won't see it again in all the rest of episode 6. You won't see it at all in episode 7, and then after everything else is settled, and for how far it's going to be settled at season 2, I think the last thing we'll see is something with them again, maybe another 5-10, essentially almost like an epilogue, and maybe a reveal at the very end, leading into season 3. Kind of like what you were saying is a lot. I don't think they're necessarily setting anything for this season. They're just building a little bit to what may be happening later.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Because I think that Adar storyline is going to get cut by the end of this season. It's going to come to its conclusion with that part of the storyline being, which will make space for a more with a stranger.
I think that you're right. I think that Isildur and Arondir are going to get. I think they're going to converge with the storyline with the Númenóreans. The Númenóreans are going to converge with Galadriel. Potentially, I feel like all that's heading to Eregion.
Yeah.
So that's all heading in that direction.
I think that's the convergence point.
I just don't see how the stranger, even geographically,
correct.
gets from the far reaches of Middle Earth in the east and Rune to where Eregion is in the west. I don't see how that happens without
I don't
massive.
think I would want it to.
No, I agree. Without a massive time jump. I did notice there was a small time jump. It felt like in this episode, when it began, at least.
Yeah, the rings were made.
The rings were made. There was a few things that already happened. And I think that needed to happen to make sense out of Anatar's corruption of Celebrimbor and some of those other things. So, but I can't see how the stranger interacts with this, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, everything is headed towards the Battle of Eregion.
Yeah.
That's going to be where we're heading for sure. And, we'll see. But looking forward to seeing how it plays out.
Yeah, yeah. And I do hope we get some more Durin and the
For sure.
dwarves in the next episode.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if it's just a fourth of the episode or something like that. Just a small
Can
part.
I get a spinoff of the dwarves?
Please, yeah.
Yes. Well, like I said, I think it would have been really
2 shows,
a good idea. You run 2 shows, and then you can focus more specifically, have the same storylines, just split over 2 shows.
Right.
I think it would be cool to see, what if, essentially, what is Gil Galad has talked about, one of the things that he really emphasized was we can't do this alone.
Yes, he did emphasize that.
So, what's going to happen? I feel like there's a possibility that, maybe we see Isildur somehow track down Galadriel and join up with them, and kind of Galadriel's
they're pretty close to the orcs, right?
I think Galadriel could be a emissary between the elves and the orcs in that moment, and be those orcs that are going after Eregion are the real threat right now. And so that might be how they shift their forces.
Yeah.
And we see something that we never thought we would see, would be an orc fighting on this next to an elf.
An elf.
Well, everyone that's converging on Eregion is going there to fight Anatar, Sauron.
Yeah.
So Adar's group, they're going to pursue Sauron. The elves are going to get there. Sauron is the issue. So they're all figuring out who's in Eregion.
Yeah.
And so everything is so, and you can see he's going to be the guy who draws in everyone. They all wind up fighting each other, and he slips out the back door because he's the ultimate manipulator.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
That's where it feels like that's where this is heading.
Yeah.
And I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I'm here for all the Anatar and dwarf scenes that I can get between now and the end of the year. So that's one reason why I felt like this episode was just so good. It was spending a lot of time on the most compelling stories, and those stories have to do with the rings. And so that to me, that's what makes this this season so enjoyable so far.
Or to throw out one more idea, we've been talking about the relationship between elves and dwarves. What if the beginning of some of these cracks in their relationship is the elves ask the dwarves for help, and because of Durin's mental state at this moment and his kind of greed through the ring, he refuses to help.
That could happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do like dwarves in the battle scenes. I think they're like pretty ferocious.
Yeah.
Even in the Hobbit movies, they're like pretty ferocious.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing them in an all-out battle.
For sure.
I mean, or the opposite of that can happen. They reach out to the dwarves, they say yes, and you see them build their bond of friendship. Only
Possibly.
to like when we see later on, like their feud in Lord of the Rings, like it hits harder because of what they were. I mean, literally, just say the word friendship and it opens the door. Like that, we got to get more of those moments of them actually being friends.
I think at this point, I think at this point in the season, the only real like thing like for me that I'm like, oh, is the hero of the Second Age right now is this kind of like punk who flirts with chicks and like tries to make out with like engaged Southlanders.
Yes.
You know, Isildur, like King Isildur, like Aragorn's, like bloodline eventually, like, and who cuts the ring off Sauron's hand at the end of the Second Age.
Yeah.
Like,
he's a punk kid right now.
he's like, I'm like, man,
He's finding himself.
like, it's just, but it tells me that I hope Amazon's committed. Like, I was telling you, like, I need all 5 seasons now.
Yeah.
Like, I need all 5.
The story needs to unfold.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
For
we
sure.
cannot just have this season end with things not tied up and then they decide that they don't have the budget for it. Like, that just cannot happen.
No, it theoretically should end where the epilogue to Fellowship begins with the Last Alliance, the Battle of the Last Alliance.
Yes.
Yeah.
With elves and with Sauron in his most ferocious
Yeah.
physical form. And,
Truthfully, like it would be really cool if the last scene is just literally the last thing you see is him cutting off.
Yeah.
That, or of course, maybe him and Elrond and Isildur.
yeah, how
like,
he refuses to throw the
Yes.
ring in.
like if that would be
He's
really
kind of
cool.
a tragic figure.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Isildur is like this like triumphant figure in the Second Age, but he's also a tragic figure.
Yeah.
Because he could have ended it there, which I'm always like, Elrond, stab him. You're an elf. Throw him in.
They've obviously been through too much, which we're
Yeah.
going to see probably unfold on what
Yeah.
they go through. But yeah, throw him in. Yeah, do that.
yeah, I mean they're going. I mean if they follow this out, if they finish the deal, you're going to see Elrond fighting alongside a full-grown Isildur, like at his strongest in Middle Earth against Sauron in his most ferocious like physical form.
Yeah.
So-
like once again, like you were saying, there has to be a time gap because I mean he has to gain at least 15 years, I would say, like for him to be really like in his prime of like what he was like when he cut off the ring and then said no, to throwing it into the fire.
Well, you get in the same battle, you get the death of Elendil, his father, the
Yes.
shattering of Narsil, the
Yes.
most impressive sword, in Middle Earth.
Yeah.
That Aragorn is, Elrond repairs and gives to Aragorn in Return of the King.
Is that the sword that is that the sword that Elendil gives up in this episode?
Oh, yeah, he does turn it in. I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I was just wondering.
Yeah,
like,
no.
I was just
No.
thinking about
I don't
like,
think Elendil's he's not there yet. Like he's like right now I think he's on his way up to that status.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. He will eventually be the leader of the faithful in Numenor. That's where we're heading. So he's on the rise for sure. But he's like, again, him and his son are like 2 of the most important figures in the entire Second Age. So
Yeah.
they're gonna have big roles, which I like the character of Elendil in this show.
yeah,
so far.
I think he's been like, he's
Solid.
essentially like super solid. He's
Top 5, man. Top 5.
Yeah, he's like he's a good father. It seems he's a very understanding father, even to the point to where like, even when his daughter is just being a complete and utter, just like
She's the worst.
Like
being the worst.
They insult him by saying like even your daughter. Like
Yeah.
he's like what?
And like even in those moments, he's collected. He's not lashing out at his daughter,
Yeah.
even though even if he knows deep down in his heart that she is so wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is not putting that relationship in a spot to where it could be destroyed.
Yeah.
You know, he's being a good father. He's obviously following the right paths and trying to be a good example for his family.
Yeah. I'm giving this season so far a 9 at this point.
Nice.
And I'll raise it to a 10 if the stranger is a blue wizard and not Gandalf.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Like if I get, there's 2 blue wizards, right? So if I get, and they're both in Middle Earth and the Second Age, it works out. So if I get 1 blue wizard is good, and then 1 blue wizard is a dark wizard, like that'd be perfect.
Yeah.
And Tolkien said they went into the East and they did with something, but we don't know. It'd be perfect.
Will we see what they did?
That's what I'm saying. It's like the most like, don't miss the open goal, Amazon.
Yeah, I do think that the Gandalf potential here is a red herring. I do think it's to get the fans to think that that it is Gandalf, and then only to reveal that it's not. And it's
I
like,
hope so.
yeah.
I really hope so.
I think we got to trust the process here. It's part of that. I think it's entertainment, right? Like this is supposed to be like captivate us. So yes, you're drawing people in whether they hate it or they love that this is potentially Gandalf, and then just freaking pull the rug. And then
I do like the stranger way more this season.
Yes.
Like he's talking. He's like
he's being
powerful.
Yeah,
He's being a human being,
for sure.
or he's being something.
Yeah.
like he was such this
showing
like,
he's emoting.
And
Like,
you-
he was a giant. He was essentially a giant baby in like in the first
That's true.
season.
That's true. Yeah, and you do have to. I mean, it's Lord of the Rings. You have to have a wizard.
yeah.
yeah.
Right? You got to have a wizard.
And maybe all this maybe this is also just building up to kind of show like a special relationship between hobbits or Harfoots and wizards. I mean, there just is something there in their relationship, and that's how they're like, oh, this is also why Gandalf has such a positive relationship.
Yeah,
with
that's
hobbits.
true. People say that, and then I was watching the original trilogy recently, and like the whole trilogy, Gandalf is just like, shut up, Peregrine Took. Like he's like, you're the worst. Throw yourself down into the pit. And
Right.
sit.
Okay, yes, but
And it seems like
Peregrine.
I'm just
okay.
throwing. I'm just like, he kind of hates Pippin
Yeah.
like the whole time.
Oh yeah, he hates Pippin. Like
It's
shoot,
hilarious.
That's because Pippin's always getting himself into things he shouldn't be getting
When
himself.
they're in Moria and he knocks in the skeleton into the and wakes up all the like
Or the
trolls and
Palantir.
stuff. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hey, honestly, like Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, it's like I feel like he was his side hustle was like fireworks, and he's like strolling into town, hey, check this out, like, and he comes every once in a while, and then he's like, oh great, now I got to go walk with the fireworks dealer, and then like that's what it was. That's the kind of relationship it was, but
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's really interesting, but yeah, I'm curious to see how they resolve that.
yeah,
I'm sure we're gonna kind of to your point, Shamato. I think next week we're gonna get some stranger
yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
we
I
gotta
don't
get the
think
ball
we're-
rolling on that storyline.
yeah. I
just
feel
a
like you
little
gotta
bit.
be like, okay, you got to see him at least one more time.
Yeah.
and then you get like almost 2 full episodes of the real storylines that are currently important, and then you finish off just by a little something leading into season 3.
Yeah.
to remind you once again, hey, the stranger exists, and his storyline has something going for it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. All right, fellas. Well, I think that was a good discussion, a great episode. It really was. I'm excited to see what comes next. So, to all of our listeners out there, thank you so much. We got actually like a special episode next week. I'll go ahead and drop a tease here. We are going to be doing a collaboration with another podcast for the review of episode 6 of Rings of Power, and so. Yeah, we'll be on their channel, but we'll also put it on our feed too. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. It's gonna be big. It's gonna be huge.
Nice. I'll be listening.
Episode 6 next week. We really appreciate you guys for listening wherever you listen. Subscribe, leave us a comment, review. Thank us, I guess, for bringing on the Lord of the Rings expert here, Chad. And if you want him back, let us know. We will, if you don't want him back,
Also
let us
know.
Yeah, but yeah, we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, man, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for
having
coming,
me.
Chad. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
sure.
appreciate you. All right, so for Shamato, for Chad, and T-Roll, somewhere where he's in the existence of the shadows, probably. But and myself, thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time, you peasants.